Spit it out. A glass shard. A forgotten girl. A desperate slap. A leader's life hanging in the balance. Blood. A crimson tear began to trace a path down his lip. Lily, barely 14, a wisp of a girl with eyes that held the weight of too many years, found herself trapped in the relentless cycle of washing dishes at the Texas Roadhouse. The Greasy Spoon Diner, usually a blur of clanging silverware and shouted orders, became a stage for a chilling drama she couldn't ignore. She watched, her heart hammering against her ribs, as Rico, the head cook, a man usually radiating a simmering anger, took his simmering rage to a boil. He methodically crushed a light bulb, the glass tinkling like malevolent chimes, transforming it into a weaponized dust destined for a biker burger seeking a twisted form of revenge. When the club president, a man mountain named Kane, bit down, Lily's instincts, honed by years of street survival, exploded. She sprinted from the kitchen, a cacophony of rockabilly guitar and sizzling grease fading behind her, screaming a desperate warning. With a force born of desperation, she slapped the sandwich from his hand, the delicate balance of bread, meat, and malice disrupted. The glass shards, gleaming like tiny daggers, had already found their mark, nicking his mouth, a prelude to the internal storm they threatened to unleash. Sometimes, Lily knew, the unseen eyes of the kitchen caught glimpses of the darkness others missed. Sometimes one desperate act, one well-aimed slap, could be the difference between life and a slow, agonizing death. Could also expose the ugly truth hidden beneath layers of lies and neglect. The Dusty Road Diner, a beacon of greasy comfort on a lonely stretch of Texas highway outside San Antonio, operated around the clock. It catered to the rumble of bikers, the weary sighs of truckers, and the bleary eyes of late-night travelers. It was a haven of sorts even for Lily, employing her as a dishwasher for a meager cash payment. No questions asked under the table. Her hours were brutal, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., but they were freedom. No one cared that she was a runaway, lost in the labyrinthine foster system. In the kitchen, she had learned the brutal rules of survival. Stay invisible, work fast, never complain. Questioning meant losing her only source of income, the fragile shield that kept her from the unforgiving streets after escaping the abusive foster home 3 months prior. Today, however, the air crackled with a different kind of tension. Rico, his brow furrowed like a thundercloud, muttered darkly about disrespectful biker trash. His eyes laser-focused on the Reaper's motorcycle club members occupying the corner booth. Club President Kane, a man in his late 50s encased in well-worn leather, had politely, almost apologetically, complained that his medium-rare steak was overcooked. He requested a replacement, a seemingly innocent request that ignited a firestorm of resentment in Rico's heart. Entitled biker criticizing my cooking? He seethed silently. I'll teach him some respect he won't soon forget. From her post at the dishwashing station, Lily watched with growing dread as Rico prepared the replacement burger. He retrieved a light bulb from storage, wrapped it in a dingy towel, and crushed it with a meat tenderizer. The sound was sickening, a prelude to the horror that was about to unfold. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate poisoning. Rico meticulously mixed the glass shards into the raw beef, forming a burger containing hundreds of microscopic fragments that would shred the mouth, throat, and stomach, leading to internal bleeding, emergency surgery, and a potentially fatal end. Lily's hands shook violently. She'd witnessed her fair share of violence in the foster system. Broken bones, burns, psychological torture, but never a calculated attempt at murder like this. Manager Eddie was nowhere to be seen, lost in a haze of paperwork. The other cook was on break, indulging in a forbidden cigarette. The waitress was busy navigating the maze of tables. Only Lily saw Rico seasoning the burger with crushed glass, grilling the poisoned food while humming a tuneless melody. Her street-honed survival instincts screamed, stay invisible, not your business. Speaking up meant revealing her underage runaway status, inviting police scrutiny, and facing the prospect of being dragged back into the foster system that had nearly broken her spirit. But the biker about to eat that burger would die a slow, agonizing death, bleeding internally. 2 weeks ago, those same Reapers had intervened when a pair of drunk truckers harassed a teenage waitress in the parking lot. Kane's simple, gravelly command, leave her alone, carried an authority that made grown men back down. The bikers had protected a vulnerable worker when nobody else would. Now, that man needed a warning, and a 14-year-old dishwasher was the only witness. Rico plated the burger, nestled it on a sesame bun with lettuce and tomato, meticulously masking the deadly glass shards within the deceptively innocent meat. He rang the bell with a triumphant clang. Order up. Replacement for the complaining biker. The waitress, oblivious to the danger, grabbed the plate and headed toward the Reaper's table. Lily watched in agonizing slow motion as Kane accepted the burger with a polite thank you. He lifted it toward his mouth, jaw opening wide, ready to take a bite. Don't eat that. Lily screamed, exploding from the kitchen. The clatter of dishes, the sizzle of the grill, and the murmur of conversations died instantly. Everyone froze, their attention snapping to the scrawny girl in the stained apron, running full speed towards Kane. Kane paused, the burger inches from his mouth, confusion etched on his face. Kid, what? Lily didn't have time to explain. With all the force she could muster, she slapped the burger from Kane's hands, sending it flying through the air. The bun separated from the patty, the meat hitting the floor with a sickening thud, scattering sesame seeds like tiny, accusing eyes. Kane's lip was bleeding, a tiny cut where a tooth had grazed it during the initial contact. A glass fragment had already touched his mouth tissue before Lily's desperate intervention. There's glass in it, Lily shouted, chest heaving, her voice raw with fear and adrenaline. The cook, Rico, he crushed a light bulb and mixed it into the burger. I watched. He was angry you complained about the steak. Said he'd teach you respect. There's glass in the meat. If you'd eaten it. Her voice broke, the enormity of what she had just prevented hitting her like a physical blow. Internal bleeding, emergency surgery. You'd die. Kane stared, his eyes fixed on the 14-year-old who had just slapped food from the club president's hand. Then he shifted his gaze to the burger on the floor, the patty exposed. Something glinted ominously in the fluorescent light. Ghost, the sergeant at arms, a mountain of a man with eyes that had seen too much darkness, crouched beside the fallen burger. He pulled out his phone, activating the flashlight. He examined the patty closely. Jesus Christ, Ghost breathed, his voice low and dangerous. Glass fragments. Dozens of them, like crushed light bulb deliberately mixed into the ground beef. He looked up at Lily, his gaze piercing. You saw the cook do this? Yes, Lily confirmed, her voice trembling but firm. Rico, about 20 minutes ago after you sent the steak back. He grabbed a light bulb from storage, crushed it with a meat tenderizer, mixed the glass powder into the beef, grilled it and served it. I'm just a dishwasher. Nobody notices dishwashers. But I saw everything. Manager Eddie rushed over, his face flushed crimson with panic. What's this about? Lily, get back to the kitchen. She just saved my life, Kane said quietly, touching his bleeding lip and showing Eddie the blood. Your cook poisoned my food with glass. Attempted murder. We're calling the police. Eddie's expression shifted from anger to abject fear. That's impossible. Rico wouldn't. Rico did, Lily said firmly. I watched. I'll testify. I don't care what happens to me. That's attempted murder. In the kitchen, Rico finally realized the gravity of the situation unfolding. He grabbed a knife, its blade gleaming menacingly under the harsh fluorescent lights. He spotted Lily through the doorway, his face contorted with rage. You little bitch. He spat. You ruined everything. He advanced, the knife raised in a threatening arc. The Reapers moved instantly. Ghost intercepted Rico, disarming him with military efficiency, and pinning him to the floor while Kane dialed 911. Police are coming. Kane told the struggling cook, his voice devoid of emotion. You just attempted the murder of the club president with poisoned food, and committed aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. You're done. Rico spat, his face red with fury. Biker trash deserved it. Always disrespecting workers. I thanked you and politely asked for a medium-rare steak. Kane countered, his voice dangerously calm. That's feedback, not disrespect. Your response was attempted murder. Lily stood trembling, the adrenaline fading, reality crashing down around her. She had exposed an attempted murder, but she had also exposed herself. Underage runaway working illegally, the police would ask questions. Social workers would get involved. She would be sent back to the foster system, a system that had been her personal hell. Manager Eddie stared at her, his face etched with horror. You're 14? You told me you were 18. If the police find out I employed a minor. You employed her knowing she was desperate and wouldn't complain about a $4 an hour wage. Kane interrupted coldly, his voice dripping with disdain. Exploitation of a vulnerable minor. The labor department will love that. The police arrived, secured the scene, and arrested Rico for attempted murder. Eddie was facing child labor violations. A detective turned to Lily, his expression one she had learned to fear. Authority was about to make decisions without consulting her. Lily Chin, age 14, reported runaway from foster placement. Will contact Child Protective Services and return you to state custody. Lily's breathing quickened. Panic began to build, a suffocating wave threatening to engulf her. Foster home number 3 had locked her in a closet for days. Foster home number 5 had starved her as punishment for wetting the bed. Returning meant more abuse, more neglect, more silence from a system that refused to acknowledge her pain. Kane watched the 14-year-old who had saved his life begin to hyperventilate. Something was terribly wrong. If this brave kid who had just prevented a murder was terrified of going back to the system, then that spoke volumes. The police station felt sterile and threatening. A detective questioned Lily relentlessly about the timeline of events, Rico's actions, and why she was working illegally at 14. Kane and Ghost refused to leave her side, despite the detective's suggestion that club members weren't appropriate advocates. She saved my life, Kane said flatly, his voice leaving no room for argument. We're not abandoning her to a system that clearly failed her before. The detective side, resigned. CPS is sending a caseworker. Lily returns to foster placement tonight. No! Lily burst out, her panic overwhelming her caution. Please, I can't go back. The foster dad at placement 3 hit me. The foster mom at placement 5 locked me in the basement. I ran because staying meant dying. Please don't send me back. The detective softened, his gaze softening ever so slightly. Those are serious allegations. If you make a formal complaint. I made complaints. Lily shouted, tears streaming down her face. 7 times. 7 different homes. Nobody believed me. Caseworkers said I was a difficult child, making excuses. So I ran, found a job and survived for 3 months. It's not perfect, but it's safer than foster care. Kane and Ghost exchanged knowing looks. Both had first-hand experience with the foster system and recognized the signs of deep-seated trauma. A caseworker arrived. Mrs. Johnson, a woman in her late 50s, was an exhausted bureaucrat drowning in an endless sea of cases. She reviewed Lily's file with visible dismay. Lily Chin, orphaned at age 7 when her parents died in a car crash. No relatives willing to take custody. 7 foster placements in 7 years. 5 disrupted due to behavioral issues. 2 emergency removals. Current runaway 3 months. Behavioral issues like reporting abuse? Kane asked pointedly, his voice laced with steel. Mrs. Johnson looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers on her clipboard. Some complaints were investigated. No evidence was found. Abusers don't leave marks that caseworkers look for? Ghost interjected, his voice a low growl. They gaslight kids into thinking nobody will believe them. Been there myself. I aged out at 18 after 12 placements. I know exactly what this kid went through. Mrs. Johnson studied Ghost, the biker with the Reaper's colors. A former foster kid, speaking from bitter experience. The system has flaws, but Lily needs supervision, stability. She needs safety, Kane corrected, his voice firm. The foster system isn't providing that. What are the alternatives? Kinship placement with a relative, but Lily has none. Group home, which is often worse. Or a licensed foster parent willing to take a teen with a trauma history. Those are rare. Kane took a deep breath. What if the Reaper MC sponsors her? We have resources, safe housing, members who've been through the system, community connections. We can provide housing, supervision, education, therapy, and legal guardianship through a veteran mentorship program. Since Ghost and I are both veterans with clean records. Mrs. Johnson looked skeptical, her brow furrowed. A motorcycle club raising a teenage girl? Unconventional, to say the least. The system's conventional approach put her through 7 abusive homes. Ghost countered, his gaze unwavering. Maybe unconventional is what she needs. We protect our own. She saved Kane's life. She's one of us now. Lily stared at them, her heart pounding in her chest. You do that? Take responsibility for a foster kid you barely know? You risked everything to save me, Kane said simply, despite knowing it would expose you to the system you feared. That's courage. The Reapers value courage. He paused, a flicker of a smile playing on his lips. If you're willing, we'll fight for you. For the first time in 7 years, Lily allowed herself a glimmer of hope. But CPS regulations were strict. The MC Clubhouse didn't qualify as a licensed foster home. Mrs. Johnson explained, emergency placement requires a licensed home, investigation of members' backgrounds and home studies. That takes months. Tonight, Lily goes to an emergency shelter while the court processes the petition. Kane's jaw tightened, his expression hardening. A shelter is just a group home, the same abuse she ran from. Mrs. Johnson looked regretful, her face etched with weariness. Unless you have a licensed foster parent willing to take emergency placement tonight, someone with existing approval, a clean background, and immediate availability, my hands are tied. Ghost pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Sarah, it's Ghost. Remember you said if I ever needed anything? I need it now. Ghost drove Lily to Modest House in the San Antonio suburbs, the home of Sarah McKenna, a former Marine, Purple Heart recipient, and licensed foster parent who had taken in Ghost himself 15 years ago. Sarah specializes in teens from hard backgrounds, Ghost explained, his voice softening. She's a former military trauma therapist, and has fostered 12 kids over 20 years. Half have stayed in contact, including me. She's good people. Sarah answered the door, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and a braid, a warm smile, and assessing eyes that saw Lily's fear instantly. You must be Lily. Ghost said you saved Kane's life. That's incredibly brave. She stepped aside, gesturing for Lily to enter. Come in. You're safe here. Lily entered cautiously. The house felt different, lived in but clean and organized. Photos of Sarah with various teens, graduation pictures, and military commendations adorned the walls. Evidence of a life spent helping others. You'll have your own room, Sarah said gently, her voice calm and reassuring. A lock on the inside. Your choice when to open it. The bathroom is yours. The kitchen is always open. Take food when you're hungry. No punishment. No locked doors, no violence. Your job is to heal. That's it. Lily's throat tightened, tears welling in her eyes. Why? You don't know me. Ghost said you risked a foster return to save someone. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. For the first time in months, Lily cried from relief, the dam of pent-up emotions finally breaking. A week later, Sarah conducted their first formal therapy session in the living room, a casual setting designed to help Lily feel safe, rather than in a sterile clinical office. Tell me about your first foster home. Sarah began gently, her voice inviting. Lily's shoulders tensed, the memory causing her body to coil inward. They were okay at first. Then I wet the bed once when I was 7. I had just lost my parents, and the foster dad said I needed discipline. He hit me with a belt. I told the caseworker. She said, children sometimes exaggerate to get attention. I wasn't moved for 6 more months. Sarah's expression remained calm and professional, but Lily saw a flicker of anger in her eyes. That caseworker failed you. Your response to trauma was normal. Their response was abuse, and the system's refusal to believe you was an institutional failure. You believe me? Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Of course, I believe you, Sarah said firmly, her gaze unwavering. I've worked with 40 foster kids. I know the patterns. Bedwetting after parental death is a textbook trauma response. Hitting a child for it is abuse. You were failed, Lily. Not difficult. Not lying. Failed. Something in Lily's chest loosened. A weight of shame she had carried for 7 years, the gnawing belief that she had somehow deserved the abuse, began to dissipate. Can I? Lily hesitated, her voice filled with uncertainty. Can I ask about Ghost when he was here? Sarah smiled softly, a hint of nostalgia in her eyes. Ghost came to me at 17, 1 year before aging out. 12 placements. PTSD from things I won't detail without his permission. He didn't trust anyone. Slept in his clothes, kept his bag packed, and expected me to kick him out any day. She paused, her gaze softening. It took 4 months before he unpacked that bag. Another 3 before he called me by name instead of ma'am. But eventually, he healed enough to believe he deserved stability. Did he really heal? Lily asked, her voice laced with doubt. Or did he just learn to hide it? Both, Sarah admitted honestly. Healing isn't erasing trauma. It's learning to live with it without letting it control you. Ghost still has nightmares sometimes, still struggles with trust. But he built a life, found a family with the Reapers, helps other kids like you. He uses his pain to recognize others' pain. That's healing. Not perfection but progress. Lily absorbed the concept of healing, rather than erasure, a novel idea. I don't know if I can heal. You don't have to know, Sarah assured her, her voice gentle. You just have to let me walk beside you while you figure it out. 2 weeks later, Lily tested whether Sarah's kindness was real. She accidentally broke Sarah's favorite coffee mug. Actually, she threw it during a flashback triggered by a loud truck backfiring outside. She waited for punishment, for yelling, for the familiar words. You're too damaged. We're sending you back. Sarah simply swept up the ceramic pieces, her expression calm, and asked, Are you hurt? Lily stared, her mind reeling. I broke your mug, the one that says, Best Mom. I saw the photos. Your daughter gave it to you. Yes, Sarah acknowledged calmly. And it's replaceable. You're not. What triggered you to throw it? The truck backfired. It sounded like something from before. Lily couldn't articulate the image. The car crash that killed her parents. The sounds that haunted her nightmares. Sarah understood without explanation. PTSD. Understandable. Next time we hear a loud noise, I'll warn you first if possible. If not, we'll work on grounding techniques so your body knows you're safe even when sounds trigger memories. She pulled Lily into a gentle hug, asking permission through her body language. A broken mug doesn't change that you belong here. Nothing you do in a trauma response will make me abandon you. That's a promise. Lily sobbed into Sarah's shoulder, releasing 7 years of fear that any mistake, any imperfection, meant abandonment. That night, For the first time since arriving at Modest House, Lily unpacked her small bag instead of keeping it ready to run. A month into the placement, Ghost arrived with an invitation. Want to learn some self-defense? Not aggressive stuff, just the basics so you feel safer in your own body. At the Reaper's Clubhouse gym, Ghost taught Lily fundamental stances and how to break a grip if someone grabbed her wrist. He showed her where to strike if genuinely threatened. Foster home for? Lily said during a break, her voice barely a whisper. The foster dad cornered me in the hallway. I froze, couldn't move, couldn't scream. He didn't actually hurt me that time, just intimidated me, but I've hated myself ever since for freezing. Ghost nodded, understanding etched on his face. Freeze is a biological response, not weakness. Your nervous system perceived a threat it couldn't fight or flee from, so it froze to minimize harm. That's a survival mechanism, not a character flaw. He demonstrated the techniques again, his movements precise and controlled. But now you're safe enough to learn active responses to build muscle memory. If, God forbid, someone threatens you again, your body will have options beyond freeze. They practiced until Lily successfully broke Ghost's gentle wrist hold 3 times in a row. I did it, Lily exclaimed, her face lighting up with a rare smile. She immediately looked embarrassed by her excitement. Ghost grinned, his eyes twinkling. Hell yeah, you did. That's not just physical skill. That's reclaiming the power the system tried to take from you. Foster care taught you to be helpless. We're teaching you that you're strong. You always were, you just needed a safe space to remember it. Driving back to Sarah's, Lily said quietly, thank you for seeing me as someone worth teaching instead of a problem to manage. You were never a problem, Ghost replied, his voice soft but firm. You were a kid in an impossible situation, surviving however you could. Now you're a kid in a safe situation learning to thrive. He paused, his gaze meeting hers in the rearview mirror. That's not charity. That's you claiming what you always deserved. But Rico's defense attorney filed a motion, arguing that Lily's testimony was unreliable. A 14-year-old runaway with a history of behavioral issues, working illegally, possibly seeking attention by fabricating a story about glass. There was no evidence proving the glass was intentionally added. Could have been accidental contamination. The prosecutor needed concrete proof. The food inspector examined the burger Kane nearly ate and confirmed the presence of hundreds of microscopic glass fragments throughout the meat, consistent with crushed light bulb deliberately mixed into the ground beef. Intentional contamination, not accidental. But without Lily's testimony explaining the motive and method, the case weakened. Kane realized the girl who had saved his life had to testify in a criminal trial, face an attorney trying to destroy her credibility, and relive her trauma publicly. Could he ask that of her? The criminal courthouse felt intimidating, with its high ceilings, formal atmosphere, and the menacing glare of Rico from the defense table. Lily sat in the witness waiting room, Sarah beside her, Ghost and Kane in the gallery showing support. Prosecutor Janet Rodriguez briefed Lily, her voice calm but serious. The defense will try to discredit you, mention your foster care history, and suggest credibility issues to imply fabrication. Stay calm. Tell the truth. The food inspector confirmed the glass. Your testimony explains how it got there. What if I freeze? Lily asked quietly, her voice laced with fear. Sarah squeezed her hand, her touch reassuring. Then you freeze. Then you breathe and continue. There's no shame in being afraid. Ghost added, his gaze steady. I'll be in the front row. If you get scared, look at me. Testifying is terrifying every time. But you're tougher than you think. You slapped a poisoned burger from Kane's hand when you could have stayed invisible. You can do this. Lily was called to the stand, walked on shaky legs, was sworn in and faced the courtroom. The prosecutor began gently, her voice kind. Lily, please tell the jury what you witnessed on April 3rd at the Dusty Road Diner. Lily took a deep breath, looked at Ghost, who nodded encouragingly, and began speaking, her voice trembling slightly at first. I was washing dishes around 10 p.m. Mr. Kane sent back a steak that was overcooked and asked politely for a medium rare one. The cook, Rico, got angry and said bikers were disrespectful trash who needed to be taught a lesson. I watched him grab a light bulb from storage, wrap it in a towel, crush it with a meat tenderizer into glass powder, mixed it into the ground beef for the replacement burger, formed the patty with the glass inside, grilled it, plated it, and sent it out. Her voice strengthened as she continued, her fear replaced by a growing sense of purpose. I knew if Mr. Kane ate that, the glass would cut his mouth, throat, and stomach, causing internal bleeding, maybe even killing him. So when I saw him about to take a bite, I ran and slapped it from his hand. His lip was already bleeding from the first contact. 5 seconds slower, he'd have swallowed the glass and been in emergency surgery. The defense attorney stood, his expensive suit and condescending smirk radiating disdain. Miss Chun, you're a runaway from foster care and worked illegally at 14. Multiple families described you as difficult and dishonest. Lily met his eyes, her anger overcoming her fear. I ran from families that hit me, starved me, and locked me away. Yes, I worked illegally because surviving on the streets was safer than staying where adults abused me and caseworkers didn't believe me. Families called me difficult because I reported abuse. That doesn't make me a liar. It makes me a survivor. She continued, her voice ringing with conviction. I had zero reason to fabricate the story. Speaking up exposed my illegal employment and got me sent to a system I feared. I did it anyway because letting someone die from poisoned food was wrong. That's not attention-seeking. That's having a conscience. Could the glass have been accidental? The defense attorney pressed, his tone skeptical. I watched Rico deliberately crush the light bulb, deliberately mix the glass into the beef, and deliberately serve it while smiling. Lily said flatly. That's not an accident. That's attempted murder. The trial lasted 3 days. Lily's testimony, the food inspector's analysis, the manager's admission that Rico was angry about the complaint, and the police finding the crushed light bulb in the trash proved premeditation beyond a reasonable doubt. The verdict was guilty. Attempted murder, food tampering, and aggravated assault. Rico received a sentence of 25 years in state prison. Manager Eddie received 2 years for child labor violations. Outside the courthouse, a reporter asked, You're 14 and took down an attempted murderer. How does that feel? Lily considered the question, her brow furrowed in thought. Feels like doing the right thing, even when it's scary. My foster care history doesn't make me less credible. It makes me someone who recognizes abuse and refuses to stay silent. The system tried to take that power away from me. I'm taking it back. But the testimony triggered PTSD nightmares about Rico, panic attacks about the foster system, and a pervasive fear that speaking up brought new dangers. Sarah recognized the symptoms and increased therapy sessions. Kane and Ghost increased their presence in her life, a constant source of support. You testified and saved his life legally, just like you saved it physically, Kane said, his voice filled with admiration. Now, the Reapers will protect you while you heal. That's what family does. The 6-month review approached. A judge would decide whether Sarah's guardianship became permanent or if Lily would be returned to the foster system. Everything depended on proving she was finally safe, finally healing, and finally home. Family court felt less threatening than criminal court. The judge reviewed the progress reports, listening intently to Sarah's testimony about Lily's growth and resilience. Lily sat beside Sarah, wearing clothes the Reapers had bought, not fancy, just clean and properly fitting. For the first time in years, she felt like a normal teenager instead of a charity case. The judge reviewed 6 months of documentation. Lily was enrolled in an online school, maintaining a B+ average despite educational gaps. Weekly therapy showed consistent progress processing her trauma. There were no behavioral incidents. She had strong support through the Reapers Veteran Mentorship Program, and her living situation was stable. The judge looked at Lily, her gaze kind but discerning. 6 months ago, you were a runaway working illegally to avoid the foster system. Today, you're a thriving student with therapy support and a stable home. How do you explain that transformation? Lily thought carefully, choosing her words with deliberation. 6 months ago, I was just surviving. Adults made decisions without asking what I needed. They placed me in homes that hurt me and called me difficult when I complained. I learned to stay invisible, trust nobody, and expect betrayal. She glanced at Sarah, then at Ghost and Kane in the gallery. Sarah was the first adult who asked me what I needed. Whoever did gave me a lock on my bedroom door so I could control my own safety. Let me eat when I was hungry without earning food through behavior. Believed me about the abuse without requiring proof. The Reapers showed me that adults can keep promises and that family means protection, not punishment. I'm thriving because people finally treated me like a human worth caring about instead of a problem to manage. The judge smiled, a genuine expression of warmth. Remarkable insights for a 14-year-old. You've clearly grown significantly. She signed the papers, her decision final. Permanent guardianship is granted to Sarah McKenna. The Reaper MC Veteran Mentorship is approved as community support. Lily Chin McKenna is now legally and permanently your daughter. Sarah pulled Lily close, both crying tears of joy. In the gallery, Ghost and Kane stood, their Reaper colors visible, supporting the newest member of their family. The Reapers threw a party at the clubhouse, a family celebration with cake, decorations, and gifts, acknowledging Lily's permanent placement. Kane presented her with a framed certificate. Honorary Reapers member, Lily Chun McKenna, awarded for courage under pressure, protection of the club president, and embodying the values we respect. Loyalty, bravery, and standing up for what's right, even at personal cost. Lily traced the frame with her fingers, her voice filled with emotion. I'm not even a biker. The Reapers aren't just about motorcycles, Kane explained, his voice warm and sincere. It's about brotherhood, taking care of each other, protecting the vulnerable, and standing against injustice. You did all 3 that night. You saved my life. Ghost added, his gaze softening. Plus, you're a foster kid who survived a system that nearly broke you, the same as me. That makes you family twice over. Other members approached with gifts. Art supplies, a laptop upgrade, and a leather jacket with Lily embroidered across the back. You're stuck with us now, Ghost grinned, a playful glint in his eyes. We'll show up to school events, embarrass you, teach you to ride motorcycles when you're older, pay for college, and walk you down the aisle someday if you want. That's the deal. Lily laughed through her tears, the sound filled with genuine joy. For the first time, she imagined a future beyond just surviving today. I want that deal. That night, Sarah found Lily on the porch, staring at the stars. Big day, Sarah observed, sitting beside her, her voice soft. The biggest? Lily agreed, her voice filled with awe. I'm legally your daughter permanently. Nobody can take me away. Nobody could have before, Sarah corrected gently, her hand resting on Lily's arm. I would have fought any attempt. But yes, now it's official. You're mine forever. Lily processed this, the words sinking in like a healing balm. Why me? You could foster any kid. Why a damaged 14-year-old who slapped a burger from a biker's hand? You're not damaged, Sarah said firmly, her gaze unwavering. You're traumatized, which is different. I chose you because Ghost said you were brave, scared, and deserved better. That's exactly the type I specialize in, the ones the system labels as difficult because they refuse to accept abuse quietly. She paused, her gaze softening. Also, you saved Kane's life at personal risk. That cost. That's not damage. That's heroism, pure and simple. It's the mark of someone with an unwavering moral compass. Forged in the fires of adversity, Sarah insisted, her voice filled with conviction. Despite everything that tried to break it, it remained true. You really believe that, Sarah? Kane asked, a hint of skepticism in his tone. I know that, Sarah assured him, her eyes sparkling with unwavering faith. Over time, you'll believe it too. For years later, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. 18-year-old Lily stood poised at her high school graduation, a beacon of hope for Sarah's family, the first to complete her education on time. Multiple college acceptance letters lay before her, each offering a full scholarship from prestigious universities. Kane and Ghost, impeccably dressed in formal attire, sat beside Sarah, their faces radiating pride as bright as the summer sun. Lily stepped up to the podium to deliver her valedictorian speech. 4 years ago, she began, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. I was just another foster kid, working illegally to survive, lost in a system that seemed determined to swallow me whole. Today, I'm college-bound, she declared, her voice now ringing with confidence and hope. With a family who believes in me, who sees my potential, who loves me unconditionally. The swell of music underscored the significance of her words. The difference, she continued, her gaze sweeping across the audience, wasn't my effort. I was always fighting to survive, clawing my way through the darkness. The difference was the adults who saw me as a person worth protecting, a life worth investing in, instead of just another problem to manage, another statistic to file away. Her eyes locked on Sarah, Kane, and Ghost, a silent acknowledgement of the profound impact they had on her life. Family isn't about biology, she stated, her voice resonating with newfound wisdom. It's about choice. It's about choosing to show up, choosing to believe, choosing to protect. A lump formed in her throat, but she pushed on, determined to share her truth. My family chose me when I had nothing to offer but courage in one desperate moment. That choice changed everything. After the ceremony, Kane found Lily in the bustling parking lot, a genuine smile gracing his lips. Proud of you, kid? He said, clapping her gently on the shoulder. So, what's the college major gonna be? Criminal justice. Lily replied, her eyes shining with determination. I want to reform the foster system, protect kids like me, make sure they don't fall through the cracks. Sarah stepped forward, wrapping her arm around Lily, pulling her close. Your parents would be so proud, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. You took the trauma that could have destroyed you and turned it into a purpose, a burning desire to make a difference in the world. They drove home to the modest house that Lily had lived in for the past 4 years, the longest she had ever stayed in one place. It was more than just a house. It was a sanctuary, a testament to the enduring power of family, forged in the crucible of hardship and preserved through unwavering courage. It was held together by adults who had kept their promises, who had stepped in when the system had failed, who had seen the diamond in the rough and nurtured it into something extraordinary. Sometimes, it was the unassuming kitchen workers who saw the hidden darkness, the insidious evils that others missed. Sometimes, one well-placed slap was enough to save a life, to jolt someone back from the brink. Sometimes, the bravery of a 14-year-old girl was enough to expose widespread food tampering and workplace abuse, to bring down those who preyed on the vulnerable. And sometimes, a runaway foster kid, scarred and broken, became a daughter, an honorary biker, and a future lawyer, not despite her scars, but because of them. Like glass shards slowly working their way out of a deep wound, the trauma surfaced, slowly, painfully, but necessarily for healing. The foster care system, as it stood, was a machine designed to process children, not protect them, to shuffle them from one placement to the next with little regard for their emotional well-being. But found family was a garden, a fertile ground where broken seedlings could finally take root, grow toward the light, and bloom into something beautiful and strong, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of love and acceptance.